Tonight we're going to translate and discuss the terrifying Latin incantation from the Misfits song Halloween 2. So grab your hair grease and do up your devil locks, and let's dive into Latin for witches and wizards. Salvete omnes. I am your Crypt Keeper Dungeon Master, Tonus. Welcome to a delightfully dark episode of Latin for Witches and Wizards. I grew up as a die-hard Danzig and Misfits fan starting in 5th grade. It was decided when 10-year-old Tony heard Walk Among Us, especially the track, I turned into a Martian.
Well, I turned into a Martian. Whoa!
I can't even call my name. If you're not familiar, the Misfits are a horror punk band formed in the late 70s. Glenn Danzig was the main creator and driving force. He wrote all the songs. They released a single on October 31st, 1981. It was called Halloween. On the B-side of that single was Halloween 2, a slightly different version of the first song, but this time featuring Latin incantations. Terrifying Latin incantations about lycanthropy and witches, and that's what we'll be discussing today. Before we go on, be sure to adjust your double lock so it is just right. There is a widely accepted translation of this song circulating all over the internet, but there are some problems and mistakes with that translation, so tonight I want to offer perhaps a more accurate translation and interpretation. This is not meant as an attack or an insult to Glenn Danzig or the Misfits or anybody. I just want to offer a possibly more accurate translation and analysis for educational purposes. I want to make it clear this is not an attack on Glenn Danzig's use of Latin. In fact, this is meant as a celebration and praise for his work. For those of you who don't know who Glenn Danzig is, he is the original creator, singer, songwriter, and probably manager / organizer of the Misfits, and then Samhain, and finally Danzig. I'm not sure if Danzig actually wrote this Latin in this song. I vaguely remember an interview where someone said he got it from some old book in Latin or something like that, and put it in the song. However, I can't find that interview anywhere, and also I can't find any information about who originally wrote this. So if you have any information on this subject about whether Danzig himself wrote it or whether he found it in an old book, please comment and let us know. Because of the language itself, I get the feeling that it's from an older source, but also I wouldn't be surprised if Glenn wrote these words himself. He's quite capable. So I'm just really curious where this came from. I'll start off by presenting the Latin and the translation from all the sources I could find. And I'm using classical Roman pronunciation, so some of the words might sound different than the recording. Formulae veteres exorcismorum et excommunicationum strigas et fictos lupos credere. Latin is such a magical language. As soon as you start speaking it aloud, you just start to feel the magic rising. I highly recommend you try it. Daimon pelem lupinam in trunco quodam cavae arbores occultandum. Halloween. Metamorphoses lycanthropy possunt inquam. Metamorphoses lycanthropy possunt inquam. And here is the translation released by the Misfits and widely cited on the internet. Ancient formulas of exorcisms and excommunications that witches and those made wolves believe. I maim now the demon clothed in wolfskin, having to hide in the hollow of a tree. I say werewolves can change shapes. Here is my possibly more correct version, and I want to preface this by saying I'm not perfect and I haven't mastered Latin by any means. However, I have been studying for a few years now, and I put a lot of hours into studying this piece, so I'm pretty sure that I'm right. First of all, the published translations all say this is non-standard Latin, but to me this seems to be pretty correct and clear standard Latin, so I'm not sure what this means. Someone may have just added that label at some point because they saw there were a few little mistakes. Now, really quickly, let's correct a few obvious mistakes. First of all, I would change certain U's to V's, and these actually aren't mistakes. V's can be written as U's in Latin because they're basically the same letter. However, there are some conventions regarding V's and U's. Certain U's just look better as V's, and they will help us translate this piece. So I'll change this word in the first line to this. By the way, in this video, I won't be ripping Danzig's pronunciation apart, but the spelling of the U where a V should be is probably the reason for his mispronunciation of uteres, when in fact the word is weteres. And this is where I'll end the commentary on Glenn's pronunciation, because I don't want to seem like I'm ripping it apart or complaining about it. It's quite good. Okay, we're just changing certain U's to V's. I'll change this word spelt with a U to this. In Roman pronunciation, this is kawai. In ecclesiastical, kave. These are the two main pronunciations of Latin. I default to the classical Roman pronunciation, but that doesn't mean that the other one is incorrect at all. Some people prefer it, and it is beautiful as well. So we've changed the U's to V's to help us translate more easily, and these aren't actually mistakes. The one quite clear mistake is in the first line. Exorcismorum is clearly meant to be a form of the word exorcism, but in Latin, this word is exorcismos, spelled with a C, not exorcismos. In the Roman pronunciation, the C is hard, exorcismos, that's how I say it, and in the other popular pronunciation, Italian or ecclesiastical, exorcismus. These are both correct, but exorcismus is not correct. So there may have been a dialect somewhere along the line that pronounced it exorcismus. In fact, we see this reflected in Spanish, English, and French. In French we say exorcisme, and in Spanish, exorcismo, and obviously in English, exorcism. So the C is in fact an S sound in many modern languages. However, in Latin, traditionally, the correct spelling is this, and is pronounced either exorcismus or exorcismus. And this isn't a horrible mistake, it's just a little detail. And the only other possible little mistake is in the word lycanthropy. All the dictionaries and sources I have access to contain the word lycanthropus, meaning werewolf, which is what this word seems to be pointing to. But the IE ending isn't really a correct form of this word. It does, however, sound like and suggest lycanthropy, with a long I on the end, which is a correct form of this word, and actually makes sense in the text. It's just the plural form of lycanthropus, werewolf. It just means werewolves. So I think this could just be a slight idiosyncratic spelling of medieval or Renaissance Latin. I have seen some varied spelling in medieval and Renaissance Latin, especially in Rosicrucian and alchemical art. Okay, so we fixed a few little possible mistakes. Let's go through line by line and translate and analyze. That sounds really boring, but it'll be fun. At least for language nerds like me and you. Okay, let's look at the first line. This is what we see published. We changed it to this. Formulae, plural of formula. And a formula can mean a rule, form, guideline, or even a magic spell. Veteres. This means old or ancient, and it's plural. It clearly refers to formulae. So, formulae veteres means ancient formulas. Exorcismorum. This is the form of exorcismus, that means of exorcisms, plural. So, ancient formulas of exorcisms. Et, and. Excommunicationum. This is a form of the word excommunicatio, or excommunication. This form means of excommunications. And if you don't know this word even in English, it basically means banishment from the church or some other religious group. I hope I don't get excommunicated from the Fiend Club for this video. So far, so good. No problems with the translation. Now the second line. Strigas et fictos lupos credere. Strigas. This means witches. It's the accusative plural. That means it's the object of the sentence. Et, and. Fictos lupos, also accusative. That means these are also the object of the sentence. This means those turned into wolves, or those shaped into wolves. Obviously just another way of saying werewolves, but the word fictus strongly implies that they were either accidentally or deliberately turned into wolves. And this little detail makes it just a little bit creepier. Credere means to believe. It's the infinitive, so it means to believe. An infinitive in Latin can also sometimes be translated in English as an ing form, so believing or lending credence to or holding to be true. So in a loose sense, the widely used translation is pretty accurate, but the problems start when we look at the forms of these words, which is extremely important in Latin, because the different forms of the words are pretty much the whole basis of the language. Word order isn't important, and the words can be jumbled around quite a lot. So the forms of words in Latin hold all the meaning. In our first two lines, formulae veteres, the ancient formulas are in the nominative case, which means they are the subject of the sentence, which means they do the action of the sentence. The action in this sentence is the verb credere, believing or holding to be true. So since the words for ancient formulas are in the nominative, that means they're doing the action in the sentence. The subject of the sentence does the action to the object. And the words strigas and fictos lupos, the witches and werewolves, are in the accusative case, which means they are the objects of the sentence, having the action or verb done to them. So they are the ones that are being believed in. The subject of the sentence does the action to the object. The formulas are believing in the witches and werewolves. So according to correct Latin, a better translation is the ancient formulas of exorcisms and excommunications holding witches and werewolves to be real. Or, the ancient formulas of exorcisms and excommunications believing in witches and werewolves. So our translation is pretty close, but it's just flipped upside down. Instead of the werewolves and witches believing in the formulas are believing in the werewolves and witches. Moving on to the third line. Daimon pelem lupinam. Daimon, nominative, spirit or demon. Pelem, accusative, skin or hide. Lupinam, adjective, of or relating to a wolf. Pelem lupinam. These two words are the accusative of wolfskin. And as we saw earlier, daimon is in the nominative, so it's doing the action to the object, which is the wolfskin. So in Latin, we know just by the forms how the words are acting. So clearly the demon is doing something with this wolfskin. Line 4 to 5. In trunco quodam cavae, arboris occultantum. The widely published translation gives, I maim now the demon clothed in wolfskin, having to hide in the hollow of a tree. This phrase caused me the most trouble because someone translated trunco to mean I maim. And this is true. The word by itself does mean to shorten or to maim. That's correct. But it can also be a form of the word truncus, as in trunk, as in tree trunk. And I'm 99% sure that trunco in this piece means trunk, as in tree trunk. And I'll explain why. And since the word arboris appears in the phrase, it's obvious here that trunco is the ablative form of truncus. And to further support my argument, the word quodam is clearly masculine and ablative, matching trunco, which is ablative and masculine. And if it weren't referring to trunco, quodam would just be a weird floating word that doesn't refer to anything. So in this case, it seems clear to me that quodam trunco means in some trunk. So the more correct translation might be, the demon hides the wolfskin. As I said, this is clear that the demon is doing the action because it's in the nominative. If I were maiming the demon would be in accusative form, daimonem. The sentence trunco daimonem means I maim the demon. And the forms of these words are important for Latin because that's the basis of the entire language. So the image of maiming a demon, as cool as it is, I don't think it's the original message of this Latin. And I must say, although we're no longer maiming a demon, the image of a demon surreptitiously hiding a wolfskin in the hollow of a tree after it did whatever it is it did in the middle of the night
is spooky as hell.
Actually, this image has been haunting me because when I go for walks in the forest near my house, I've been noticing more hollow trees, and just the thought of a demon hiding its wolfskin disguise in there creeps me out. I don't know where this idea came from, but it's very spooky. In. With accusative it means into, with the ablative it means in, or inside. Trunco. It could mean I maim, or mutilate, or shorten by cutting off. Or, in this case, I believe it means trunk, as in tree trunk. Quodam, ablative. Ablative can mean things like in, by, with, or from. This word's masculine, meaning a certain, like a certain one, a certain tree trunk. Kawai, feminine adjective. A feminine genitive adjective, meaning hollow or concave, resembles the word cave. This adjective clearly matches arboris, because both are genitive and both are feminine. Genitive means of the. So, kawai arboris, of the hollow tree. Kawai here is not the noun, as in the translation, because the noun for hollow is kavus, that's masculine, and it wouldn't take this form. Occultandum. I believe this is the gerundive meaning hiding, or some form of hiding. Lines 6 through 9. Metamorphosis lycanthropy possunt inquam. The last 4 lines are the easiest part and are the most straightforward. In my opinion, they're also the most horrifying. Here's each word. Metamorphosis, transformations or the changing of shapes. This is plural. Lycanthropy. This is the plural form of werewolf, so it means werewolves. Possunt. Possunt. They can, they are able. inquam, I say. This just feels like this whole Latin passage was written by someone who has witnessed something and is frantically trying to communicate to all the non-believers that they really can change shape. They can turn into werewolves. I feel like this is almost some kind of desperate warning, or a final writing by someone who is being hunted by werewolves. My closest literal translation. So if we translate the Latin provided literally, it will mean something like this. Ancient formulas of exorcisms and excommunications holding witches and werewolves to be true. A demon hiding the wolfskin in a certain trunk of a hollow tree. I say, werewolves can transform. If you have your own translation, it would be amazing if you shared it in the comments. And here is my closest Latin for the common given English version. So if this was written in English originally, a more correct Latin rendering might be this. Formulas veteres exorcismorum et excommunicationum, quas strigae et ficti lupi credunt. Here the witches and werewolves are doing the believing, and the formulas are receiving the action of believing. Here, the ancient formulas are in the accusative, so they're the object of the sentence, and the subject of the sentence, the witches and the werewolves, are doing the believing. I'm such a dork right now. Daimonem in pelle lupina, occultandum in cavo arboris nunc trunco. Metamorphoses lycanthropi possunt inquam. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering if the ancient Greeks and Romans had werewolves, yes they did. This is the Greek word, lycanthropos. This Latin spell or charm remains a mystery to me. Did Glenn write it in English and then translate it into Latin? Or did he find it in some ancient magic book and then set it to some rockin' music? We may never know. Again, if you have any information about the source of this poem, please write it in the comments. I really get the feeling this was not written in English originally, because the English doesn't sound like that of a native speaker. Either way, this piece is beautiful and very abstract and poetic. Whichever translation we choose, it does instantly paint an eerie picture that never fails to raise the hair on the back of one's neck. In fact, whilst working on this little project, I was ever aware of the wild moonlit night calling to me, and I almost thought I could sense a subtle lupine presence waiting in the woods, in the hollow of a tree. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. It was a lot of work, but it was really fun. If you liked this spooky video, please consider supporting this project. I have donation links in the description, and I have a Patreon account. I hope to see you in the next video. And remember, they can transform. I say, werewolves can transform. Valete omnes, blessed be.